Welcome to the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts. I'm Elisabeth Palmer, an assistant curator of education here at the museum. I'm so excited to walk you through the galleries of our current visiting exhibition, Ubuhle Women, Beadwork and the Art of Independence. Today we'll be looking at 6 works in the exhibition. It's organized by different sections. We'll start with Remembering Those We've Lost, Ubuhle Today, The Bulls, and then end in the African Crucifixion. Here we are in the galleries. This is the inside of Ubuhle Women, the exhibition. And Ubuhle means beautiful in Xhosa, and it is a collective of women that was founded in the 90s by 2 women, Beverly Gibson and Induna Notabani. And they did this as a way to restore the dignity of women who have been victims of poverty and abuse. And through this collective, giving them a sense of security, belonging, teaching them a skill so they can earn their own money and in a safe environment and earn money to support their children and their family. This collective of women in South Africa, they also have, they deal with issues that we deal with at home. They deal with poverty, they deal with health issues like HIV and AIDS and other illnesses. They deal with the politics, the struggles of that. So really what we see in these works are, they're stories. And there are currently 5 women in the collective, and their hope through their art, such as this one, which we'll talk about in a minute, is to, make something beautiful in hard times. It's survival. It's, you're creating your own artistic vision and finding your way. And they're hoping, to share this with others, but also, the children that they're having, the children of those they've lost, telling those children about their mothers and sharing the skills that is earning, allowing them to earn an income and then passing that down to them, which is really beautiful. So we do have 5 artists in the exhibition, as I said. The first is Induna Notabani, and Induna means leader. She is the teacher of the women. She learned beading from her grandmother, who learned it from her grandmother. And the women who come into the collective to learn, Induna teaches them, and she has such a perfect eye and high standards that's why you see this beautiful quality of work that's almost perfect, with perfect circles and just very, very purposeful, whether it's abstract like this piece or something more figurative that we'll see later on today. So we have Induna, we also have Zandile, Nola Khanito, and then Thondo Notabani. Almost all of them are sisters in a way. Bev Gibson is a South African woman, the co-founder, and she deals with the more business side of things. So the artists do their thing, and Bev does her thing. And that leads me into this first section that we have, which is Remembering Those We've Lost. And this was included by the women because they believe that they would not be where they are today with Ubuhle without these women that they've lost to health illnesses, complications of HIV and AIDS. And this first one, this piece here, is by Bongiswa Notabani, and she passed away from complications to HIV and AIDS. And this piece is called Thank You, and it was a gift to Bev Gibson. And in here we see some abstract pieces, right? We don't recognize any figures or symbols. We see, X's, we see circles, we see arrows, and we have our colors, but we don't know what this means. But these are Xhosa symbols to Bongiswa, and she created this piece as a thank you to Bev Gibson, and as I said, for Bev's work, talent, skills, time, and resources to creating Ubuhle and evolving it into the business that it is. The opportunity to be part of the collective, the opportunity to earn a skill that produces an income for Bangiswa and her children, that meant so much. And so she made this for Bev. It is called a ndwango, which comes from the black cloth that they sew onto. So this ndwango is a gift thanking Bev for her time and her skills. And Bev, when I spoke to her about it, it's a very personal piece. It's very special to her as not just from Bangiswa, but a symbol of Ubuhle as a whole. These women are constantly exchanging their skills, their time, caring for each other. They really are a sisterhood of women, not just biologically, but by choice as well. And it's a beautiful relationship that they take care of each other with those skills, with their resources and their time. And it's a beautiful exchange that comes together for Bev. And so it's a very special piece, and I wanted to share that with you. And there's also an inscription on the back, which unfortunately we can't see, but it gives another depth of personal meaning because it is in Xhosa to Bev, but Bev doesn't know what it means, and Induna won't tell her, which is, that just shows you how personal and how much it means. And I think Induna will tell Bev when she's ready what it means, but so Bev's hopeful. But that is on the back here, which is really, really lovely. So this is thank you. I hope you just appreciate it. Just the tiny little beads here, and it's just so detailed, the different colors that they have. And these perfect circles that Bangiswa and some of the other women were able to do, they have no professional training in the arts. This is all like natural skill and learning. So really beautiful piece. And one of the abstract pieces that we'll look at today. We will look at more figurative work next. In this next piece, we're in the section of Ubuhle today that the women have been working on. The 5 women that we previously talked about have been working on. And in this piece, we have My Fantasy. And here we see a white rectangular house with a thatched roof. And we have a pathway leading up to the house from the bottom of the cloth. And around it, we have an abundance of different flora over here. And then the top third is devoted to the sky. And we have a red crescent moon. And here, it's not as clear. I like to think of it as the sun, maybe, just kind of blazing in the sky. Because some of these works are not single moments, but they represent ideas. And this is one of those examples that represents a desire, a wish. And this piece is by Nola Khanito. And this is her signature pattern. So in all of her work, she has a white house. And that was a way for her to, how do I say this? Put it out in the universe. Like, that's her wish, to have a house that looks like this. It's a status, stability, right? You want a home, you want shelter, and more permanent shelter versus the temporary, and make it your own. So she would create this pattern in her works to put it out in the universe. And I can happily tell you that the success she's experienced in Ubuhle allowed her to earn and save enough money to where she was able to build her own house. And so it's just, when I see her work, I'm really inspired by her dedication, her hard work, her creativity, and really working for what she wants. And it's a beautiful piece. And this is a traditional Xhosa house that they have in South Africa. And it's just really stunning, using colors that the Xhosa are known for using, which are very muted colors, versus they don't always use these red, bold colors. It's more blues and whites and purples and the greens that we see here, but it's really quite stunning, and I think a great example of what the women choose to portray on these ndwangos. They can be memory, they can be gifts, they can be desires and wishes, but it's always a personal story for them, and I think that's really lovely and beautiful. And you'll see the different ways too that the women convey their personal styles, their artistic visions, and their stories. Some more abstract and some more figurative and stylized with the different flora surrounding the house. In this piece, it's called Sisters and Friends by Nduna. And here we see a tree figure with the branches circling out from under it. And trees are an important symbol to Nduna. They frequently appear in her work, both taking on spiritual meaning as well as literal meanings. They can symbolize stability, life, growth, transformation, protection. And here, especially with Nduna's work, is you'll see trees of life, trees of death, trees of sacrifice. But this one is very personal, with remembering her sisters and her friends, those that she's lost, those that are still with her today, and they are part of her tree. They're part of who she is. She grew from them. They've helped her grow in more ways. They've been her stable lifeline, what she knew, what she knows, what she will know in the future. And if you think about your own sisters, your siblings, brothers, your friends, they teach you life lessons. They teach you about yourself, you learn about them, and that informs who you are as a person, your outlook on life. And so, this is another example of the ndwango being a site of memory to her sisters, her friends, and what they mean to her. It's very personal. And again, with the colors, we have these beautiful blue beads that are very symbolic of the Xhosa beadwork tradition. And you see them, there's also some purple in there, like over here, and white that is spread throughout the lighter areas. We do have a little bit of green in this corner to kind of, green is very vibrant. It signifies growth and life, so we have that as well. But this, it's part of her identity, being Xhosa. It's part of the collective that she's part of, and just a really, stunning piece. It's not just a tree. We got to dig a little bit deeper into what that means for her. And so there are a few other, like there's a moon, there's a little bird up here as well. So this is a living, thriving tree, even though it's blue, and that might, to some of us, that might be a little, that can convey some sadness in a way, but also calm. And so I think you also have those feelings there for those she's lost, being sad, but also calm in who she is, the work she's doing, and the sisters and friends that she has now, and thinking about the children that she's still looking after and their future, and how this tree will continue to grow. In this section, the bulls, we see large tapestries by the artist that show cattle, bulls. Even though the section is called bulls, there are some female cows in here, so I do want to let you know about that. But bulls are very important in the Xhosa culture. They are a way of life for financial stability for farmers and cattle rangers, but also they symbolize life and wealth. They themselves are money. And each of these artists in this section were asked to choose a bull to connect their personal meaning, their story to that bowl, and through their styles, their carefully chosen colored beads and patterns, we see those styles, those stories come out. And this piece in particular is very vibrant than what we've seen so far in the galleries. This is by Zondile, and she is the only Zulu member, part of the group. So in Zulu, their culture, they use vibrant colors. So that's why we see more reds and oranges and more brighter greens and blues. And Zondile herself is a very conservative person. She's a very strict mother. She wears all black, but in her beadwork, this is where, as Bev said, she expresses her wild side. And her favorite colors are red and pink, and we see that come out in the bowl and these wonderful little patterns surrounding it down here. And this, I do want to point out that this piece has two titles. The first being I Am Ill, I Still See Color and Beauty, and the second being Jamudi, the Red Cow. And so I want to talk about that first title, which is I Am Ill and Still See Color and Beauty. At the time of this Ndwango being made, Zondile was very ill. She struggles with high blood pressure and diabetes, almost to the point of being hospitalized. But even though she's having so much, she's battling her health, she still beads, she still creates. It hasn't defeated her. It doesn't keep her from creating and expressing herself, which I think is just very inspiring, first of all, because if I'm sick, I just don't feel like myself, and I just want to stay in bed. But it's very inspiring to see someone who pushes through that and, works hard, still creates something. And that second part, Jamludi, is the name of the cow here. And that is a personal story for her. She remembers as a little girl that her father, who she's very close to, he would go out to work with the cattle, and she always knew when he was done and ready to come home, because a red cow would just yell in the field when he was being called in, and that meant that her father was coming home. And so, that's a very personal, story and experience. And so here we have, this cow that is a memory of her father coming home, and so she can be with him. And that's very, very sweet and, just really, wonderful symbolism. It's not just a cow, but, it reminds us of her father as well. We think about him and her story and her culture with these different colors and patterns, and the fact that they are so bold when the Xhosa culture use more muted colors. She's actually inspired the other women who are Xhosa to explore with red and pink and more vibrant colors, which I think is, again, that wonderful exchange that we talked at the beginning of how they influence each other, they learn from each other. And that's very inspiring and heartwarming for me. In this section, I'm going to show you two very different pieces that we've seen before. This piece in particular has been left unfinished. This is called The Sacrifice by Thembani Notabella. She's one of the women that have passed in the collective. And at the time of this piece, she was very ill. And we see that it's been left unfinished here on the lower half of the face, which it has been pointed out to me that it looks like a mask, which is very relevant to our current times. But this was actually made in 2011, and we can see the black cloth coming in that they sew the beads onto. And it's a really just a great example to see that black cloth come through when we don't normally have that in the finished pieces, and see the beadwork and the pattern that she and the others work on. She unfortunately passed away before she could finish this piece. And you can see, this female figure here, her torso. She does have arms. It might be hard to see, but she does have arms holding a pink, what I'm assuming, might be a chicken or something. Can't really tell, but it does have like a little beak and a red eye with that bead and a little, maybe a rooster. It's reminding me of a rooster. So she is holding it, and she has, below that she has some pink beadwork along there. And I just wanted to share this with you for this example of seeing the cloth, seeing the beadwork, and telling her story. The collective did take her passing pretty hard. She was one of Induna's sisters. Induna takes care of her children now. And through that, Induna is able to tell them about the incredible work that their mother did in the collective, her stories, and is teaching them to bead as well. And so just very inspiring. We see in this piece more about her style. We see different colors. She is kosa, so we see those blues, we see those whites, but we do see the exploration of other colors with the red and the green, and those more brighter colors, especially in their hair, where they're able to express themselves. And we have different symbols with the moon, the circles, and some flower patterns over here, and more kosa symbols as well. That's a very, very, just a good piece to remember her by. We will see in our next and last piece, we will see one of her final works that she was able to complete before she passed with more of the women. They worked on it together. So we'll look at that next. Our final piece that we'll kind of save the biggest for last for us. This piece was commissioned by the Anglican Church in Pietermaritzburg in South Africa. And this is a piece that was worked on by 7 of the Ubuhle women. Induna spearheaded the design, the project, and we can see, as we've talked about before, 3 trees in this piece, which we've learned is very important to Induna, but also symbols that the other artists could relate to as well, both literally and spiritually. And we have those 3 trees. We have a tree of destruction, the tree of sacrifice, and a tree of life. And so that magic number of 3 coming in, the importance of 3, and then those stages of this biblical story of the crucifixion of Christ, but shown in a very South African way. And I do want to say that this piece, while the story is very biblical, it's being told by women who are experiencing 21st century issues in South Africa. They're facing job security, dealing with that, politics, health, environment with food and water. And so all of those issues, what they're experiencing is coming through this story. And as we go through each section, you'll probably see some symbols that we've looked at already today with cattle. You'll see that white house again. And of course, the trees themselves with the different flora and fauna, birds, fish, and other plants and flowers that we've seen today. So we'll start with the first tree, which is the tree of destruction. And we have it here coming from the bottom and working our way up to where these gold and black and white vultures are. But down here at the bottom, we'll see like a rib cage, bones down here. And notice the colors. They're very brown, they're very muted, they're very dark. They're there's not a lot of life happening here, right? And on the other side, we see a bull skull, and as we've learned, the cattle symbolism is very important to the Xhosa and Zulu traditions. And so to see the skull there, when it normally is representative of life, there's no life here. It's very hopeless and just mourning. There's no color. As well as we look up, as we kind of go up the tree a little bit, we see some of these circles here. We go up, and then we see these ribbons that I'm sure maybe you've seen with us. We usually have every month, there's sort of like an awareness month. October is breast cancer awareness, other months autism, HIV and AIDS, and some of these ribbons signify the HIV and AIDS, which is a huge issue for this community, but others as well, especially like diabetes and others that the women face. And so those are there as well, just to symbolize that the women they've lost and the health issues that they face. And as we go further up, we see those vultures that are sitting on the tree that do have the green and purple and white and yellow of their cultures and their country. So it's also very, there's some political overtones, undertones, in there as well. As we go past the vultures, the upper left corner, we see clouds and we see lightning bolts, and that's the storm that's happening in this time of destruction symbolically. And that's going to bring us over into the central panel, this very symbolic tree of sacrifice, and that's shown with the crucifixion of Christ that we have here. And biblically, that's the story of redemption, right? The story, the fall, the redemption of the fall of mankind, Adam and Eve in the garden. And so we have that with the sacrifice, and here we have him portrayed, and we have Mary and John at his feet. While we're looking down here, we see the rainbow behind him, and we have that White House again that we've seen before. And again, these are the women bringing themselves into it. And I do want to linger on the Christ figure because it is so stunning. This is another work by Thembani, who had the unfinished piece. And this was completed before she passed, but she was very ill. And during her illness, while she was working on this, she used this as a way to relate to Christ and his suffering as she was suffering from her own illness. And so we see that in, this image of an African Christ with his wounds. We see it at the feet with the stigmata of the nails and in the hands, as well as the where he was pierced in the ribs. And we see that red, and we see his rib cage and just the damage that this is doing to his body, but also thinking about the artist and the damage that, those complications from AIDS and HIV are doing to her body, and she's turning it into this piece here. And I think it's really, he is so expressive. You can see, the pain of the body, the stress on the body, but his face is also, I think, one of acceptance at the, accepting the sacrifice that he's making to mankind. And in a way, I think Thembani was sharing that calm, that acceptance that this was going to be, this was going to happen to her. Her life was coming to an end. And so just a really, really stunning piece. And I think it makes it, when you think about her, it gives a deeper meaning, very personal, and, just taking a time to reflect on that as well. And, maybe the therapeutic experience of creating art while, you're sick and, you hear that your life is coming to an end and preparing for that. But I don't want it all to be doom and gloom, because that's not what the sacrifice is about, right? It's the redemption. And from Christ's head, we have a sun coming out with rays of light and gold, and it's a new beginning that's happening, and that will take us to the final tree, which is the tree of life that we'll move over to next. So from the storm and from this new beginning, we have the tree of life and this beautiful blue sky that's above it. And in this tree of life, you can see all the colors, and you can see a river. Around the tree, you can see chickens and their little chicks, and grass and plants are growing very vibrantly. In the tree are more birds and fruits. You can see oranges and apples and bananas and butterflies, and it's life. It's bursting with life. It's very calm. Even the baby chicks and baby fish. It's a better time, and we see that, and it's because of the sacrifice. We had to go through the destruction, have the sacrifice, and we have this wonderful today that's so much better than where we were, and happier for it, even though we've lost some very important people on the way. We're able to enjoy something better afterwards. And we do have the stars and the moon. The women do love Van Gogh's Starry Night, and so they were inspired up there, so I hope you enjoy that little bit. Some other symbols that we have in here that you may see, we have the rain, so we have a cloud of rain, and that's very cleansing. Water is a very purifying, cleansing symbol, so we have that before we move on to the tree of life as well. So, I hope it's a very big piece. It is quite narrative, but it really is a story of redemption and hope, and working through the obstacles to get to, it will be okay. It will get better. You just have to, keep moving forward. And I hope you feel empowered to create your own artistic visions and forge your own path. Thank you.